Okay, and we are back. Hey everyone, Mushroomz here, and welcome to, as promised, the much longer and much more positive Best Songs of 2025 year-end list. Now this year was actually pretty special for me, since I went into it with a specific personal goal of mine to listen to as much new music as possible, to really expand my knowledge of different genres. And with all that new music came expectedly a lot more potential favorite songs of the year. So much so that I pretty much had to break the formula I've used in previous year-end lists where it's just honorable mentions in a top 10. No honorable mentions this year, but to compensate, I've expanded my list from a top 10 all the way to a top 40. So for the interest of time, let's just get started with my number 40 pick. Kicking the list off, we've got Metro Boomin, Young Dro, and DJ Spins with Stealin' All the Swag. I know a lot of people really didn't like the new Metro mixtape, but this song I feel like really embodies the fun 2000s vibe the whole tape was going for. And that's mostly due to just how much charisma Young Dro has. His performance here is super infectious. Really not that deep with this one, it's simply a very fun time. Two Alice with Sidekick, one of the hardest beats of the year first off, absolutely love the crunch of the 808s. And this you'll notice will be a pretty common occurrence with this list, but I really feel like we saw the rage genre start to properly evolve this year. And that combined with me generally learning to enjoy the sound more, resulted in a lot of rage adjacent tracks making it into my top 40. What I like about this Two Hollis one specifically though is, despite how short it is, it's packed with a lot of ear candy and nice little vocal inflections that really help with its replayability. Like, this is a track I can pretty comfortably immediately run back after one or two listens. It is admittedly a bit of an outlier from the Star album that it's a part of, which is much more EDM focused, but it's undoubtedly the track that packs the most punch to me.
When it's too late for you to dip, you gotta stay.
Rappers Westside Gunn and Mike link up for a track on the second Heels Have Eyes project with Blow Henry, and it's easily the best track across the trilogy. It's really the beat that makes Henry so memorable, being a simple but magical, dare I say even whimsical loop. The chemistry between Gunn and Mike as well, it's crazy how different their voices sound while still both fitting excellently over the instrumental. Does have that really long skit at the end, but whatever, you can just skip it anyways. Giveon came through with a great record in 2025 that I think really demonstrated his improvement in sound selection, with Rather Be being probably the most succinct showing of this. Such a luxurious backing of strings, horns, and vocal harmonies that all come together to really bring out the best in Giveon's voice, which of course is always a standout. Massive step up from the more standard, minimal R&B backing a lot of his contemporaries work with. Scrim, of course, one half of Suicide Boys with his track Way of Sorrows. I've really got to thank my girlfriend for this inclusion since she's fully responsible for my total reevaluation of Suicide Boys' music over this year. Like, I went from having virtually no interest in their catalog to going to grade A 2025 within the span of like 6 months. But with this track specifically, it's off Scrim's solo album this year, and honestly, it's just a super replayable dark banger with a haunting instrumental that has a pretty nice progression across the track's runtime. I'm a simple man, what can I say? Miley Cyrus is certainly not an artist I'd really ever expect to make it onto a list like this, but man, was her album this year such an incredible moment. To see her finally realize her full musical potential was so satisfying. Golden Burning Sun being a clear standout for me, with one of the most powerful choruses across the entire record. And sonically, the soft rock backing with a touch of psychedelia mixes so well with Miley's smoky delivery. It makes me feel like I'm atop a mountain watching the sunset over a giant forest right during golden hour. There's even this amazing bridge of swirling synths and vocals that brings the whole thing together amazingly. I really can't believe I'm talking about a Miley Cyrus song right now. Legendary black gaze band Deaf Heaven come through with a wild 7.5 minute journey with their track Winona. And man, as someone who's truthfully not really into the black metal scene like that, this was a great entry into the space. The shoegazy elements of the track are what really carry it for me. The way everything's mixed feels like I'm running face first into a brick wall of sound, in the best way possible. And while the shrieking vocal style did take some time to get used to, I now truly appreciate that this is really the only kind of way you can make vocals on a track like this. For a song this long too, the sonic build-up, release, and fade-out all feel like they happen at the exact perfect time, which is exceptionally rare for me to say, even about long-ass songs that I absolutely adore. Looking at you, Swans. Dark Thoughts by Lil Tecca, probably the safest song of the summer pick you could go with, but it's genuinely a great throwback track. Amazing instrumental sampling Pharrell and Jay-Z's 2000s track Frontin', and essentially modernizing it while still keeping that nostalgic sound. And Tecca himself has always been a rapper I feel mostly excels with great production behind him, and this song of course is no exception. One of Yeat's most insane tracks this year with The Bell. My feelings on Yeat are overall still mixed, but I can't deny that he's come through with some super strong highlights recently. What stands out to me the most with this track though has gotta be the mix. There's almost like an uncomfortable amount of high end, but for whatever reason it gives this real aggression to some of Yeat's vocal inflections, which I find very cool. And speaking of inflections, Yeat comes through with a lot of variety here, from more melodic singing moments to high energy barking and even a little falsetto bit.
Oh my diamond, speak to me. Oh my diamond,
and man, every time that titular bell hits you, it feels like you're getting slammed straight in the face with it. Apparently that's a go-to metaphor of mine when describing music, just literally getting fucking smacked in the head with it, I guess. Probably the most chill song of the year, courtesy of Men I Trust. I Come With Mud is like the definition of a lazy Sunday song. Lead vocalist Emmanuel Pruel, ooh, that's rough. Lead vocalist Emmanuel Pruel has such a relaxing style of singing, and it's complemented excellently with the laid-back acoustic instrumentation. There's even a little guitar solo bridge here that gives off the perfect laid-back but cool vibe the rest of the song has. And let me tell you, there's a very specific certain activity that you can do while listening to this song, and it makes it hit so much better. Can't exactly remember what it is though. Turnstile is another band that I really have to credit for expanding my taste into some of the harder punk/metal adjacent stuff this year had to offer, but I Care, of course, couldn't be more different from Winona in style. Here we've got some lovely sprinting guitar licks over some heavily 80s influenced drums, and a very floaty vocal performance from Brendan Yates, if that makes sense, that still manages to hit perfectly during the more intense chorus. Really just appreciate the accessibility of this song above all else though. Certainly helped me expand my palette this year.
Throwing petals like, do you love me at night?
Bieber's comeback albums this year, Swag and Swag 2, were overall really big misses for me. But I'll still admit, the link up with McGee and Dijon did lead to a very strong highlight with Daisies. There's something so comforting about the tone of guitar that McGee is able to conjure up that the whole instrumental is centered around. And this is another great example of how much a good singer like Justin Bieber can be elevated with a nice enough backing. Lyrically speaking too, it's very cute. I like the opening line referencing the whole he loves me not flower petal thing, and the way it's flipped in the second verse is pretty sweet too. Also helps that the song is so damn catchy, but I don't know, it all just comes together really well for me.
I had my community sick when they unraveled our time travelers.
Moving to a very different type of song now, Billy Woods continues to make some of the most unnerving abstract hip-hop out there, the track Cold Sweat being one of the many great examples. Production choice by Ant is so unsettling. It almost sounds like what happens when you put a generic trap beat into a DAW and then loop the weird unnatural segment of the chord progression over and over again. Like there's no musical release, it's just a constantly building stream of tension. And over this beat, Woods as usual shows off masterful lyricism, describing such vivid nightmares that cause these titular cold sweats. Combined with his off-kilter flow too, it makes for such an uneasy listen. Especially that little spoken word interlude at the end where those ghostly vocal samples are introduced into the song, genuinely haunting in such a strange way.
Why would it end? Maybe I'm crazy.
Great track overall, although I gotta shout out some other album cuts like Misery, Waterproof Mascara, and Born Alone. Gollywog as a whole is such an incredible listen.
As a student, first thing I do is look for pills. I think Miss Shirley living through me.
Mavi really continues the trend of improvement with every single release of his here. And let me tell you, hearing him switch from the more common, slow, drumless, sample-based production to a clean, fast-paced instrumental with a super speedy drum pattern on silent film, it's such a refreshing change of pace. The flow here has to be the standout. Mavi rides this beat so effortlessly, it's almost hard to believe that he doesn't have more sounds with the same tempo. And his rapping voice has always been very nice, but I was surprised to hear how well this chiller delivery worked with the production. A very impressive showing of versatility overall, and leaves me extremely hyped for whatever Mavi's working on in 2026. Okay, I will admit here, I was a little late to the esdeekid hype train, but it's safe to say, I get it now. This might be the hardest rap song of the entire year. I personally always love tracks where the most random, out-there vocal style ends up working way better than anyone else could have imagined, and the Scouse accent is a perfect example of this phenomenon. Seriously, I still don't understand how a guy that literally sounds like fucking Patty Pimblett has one of the most compelling deliveries in the underground rap scene right now. Like Mavi though, and unlike a lot of other rage artists who don't place a lot of emphasis on the skill of rapping itself, esdeekid's flow is simply immaculate, constantly building up the track's energy. And can't forget the producer tag belonging to Wraith9, so simple, but dare I say an already iconic soundbite.
Okay.
I wanna go vacay.
Still to this day, one of the most underrated established rappers with a Mine here. While Dark Thoughts was probably the song of the summer, his track Vacay was certainly my song of the summer. Unbelievably bouncy rapping here, sprinkled with a lot of fun lines about just a nice ass sounding vacation. And sound-wise, you really can't ask for a song more perfect for the summer setting. Like, throw this on during a pool party and everyone's going crazy. Now this Jane remover spot was pretty tough since there's honestly so many highlights on Revenge Seekers, but I ended up going with the basic pick of Dancing with Your Eyes Closed purely because it generates the most dopamine out of every track on that record. Production here is just so addicting. It really finds that perfect pocket between EDM, hyperpop, and rage, with a nice bonus of tons of cool sample work. And it's especially awesome to see Jane reference a lot of her older digicore stylings after a record like Census Designated already demonstrated her versatility. Overall, a really strong standalone single that gets even better within the context of Jane's entire discography. Coming in with the second Too Hollis song of the list. For clarification, by the way, artists get up to 2 lead entries in the top 40 as long as the songs aren't on the same album and they both aren't in the top 10. But I'm not gonna lie, this is literally just because I grinded the fuck out of this track on Fortnite Festival. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it when it first dropped. Love the insane bass that it's built around and the faster tempo, with very catchy melodies from both Too Hollis and Nate Sib. But it was really grinding the song out for hours at a time to get that perfect run on Fortnite that allowed it to grow on me more and more as I noticed so many other cool aspects of the instrumental. And you might be thinking, that's kind of a dumb reason to have Afraid on my favorite songs list, but I think the fact that I heard the intro of this song probably hundreds of times at this point, and am still not sick of it, is a testament to how much I genuinely do love the song for what it is. We've got another mention of Suicide Boys here. Shocker, I know, but I listened to quite a lot of their catalog this year, and Napoleon has steadily risen the ranks of a pretty chunky discography to become one of my all-time favorite tracks of theirs. See, generally my biggest issue with the duo is that I feel like their production choices are often very samey, which leads to a lot of tracks of theirs falling into this very large void of middle-of-the-road quality that 9 times out of 10 I'll just skip in favor of one of my favorites of theirs. Well, that makes it all the more fresh and exciting when they go over a clubbier beat that literally samples a track called Make It Bounce. And already I'm such a huge fan of these more lighthearted tracks from the boys, but the bonus chemistry that Scrim and Ruby have on here is so fun, especially during the outro. And gotta shout out 2 bars here. First off in the end, 2C Sly reference in Big 2025 is crazy. Also, pop a pill like Kodak, I glitch for the Twitch. If you don't know the clip that that's referencing, I'll play it right now, but it is incredible.
That was a glitch for the Twitch.
The departure of Black Country New Road's lead singer Isaac Wood did sting a lot, considering how amazing his vocal performances were on Ants from Up There. But thankfully, the band's newest record this year proved that such a change didn't affect their quality of music one bit, with Two Horses being a super adventurous highlight. It follows a great structure from a slowly building intro with soft lines referencing Joni Mitchell and really painting that western feel the track has. And soon enough later, it explodes into this sprawling, fast-paced rhythm which really highlights the dense and luscious instrumentation the band is most known for. Kinda like Miley Cyrus, weirdly enough, this is another one of those tracks where I can literally see the exact world that it's trying to paint. Like I say, I always love when a track is able to do that, and on Two Horses, it makes for a fantastically mesmerizing experience. Okay, and little intermission here as we approach the halfway point, or I guess it's not even the halfway point since the higher up we go, the more I usually talk about each song. Honestly, probably closer to the 1/3 way point, I guess. But I just wanted to take this pause here to let you know that I actually have a new song coming out myself. I'd really appreciate it if you check that out. Also working on getting some of my older music back on streaming, so be excited for that as well. So yeah, sorry, just a little bit of self-promo there. Anyways, back to the list.
It's gonna take a minute.
Making up my number 20 and number 19 spot, we've got 2 Paris, Texas songs off of their dual EPs this year. I literally just couldn't pick between the dark, chaotic sound of Tantrum and the equally as chaotic but slightly goofier and more melodic Mudbone. But both songs share the ability to effortlessly merge hip-hop and rock in such a refreshing way. Extra impressive given how cursed a fusion of genres that usually is. Rebirth. Like Suicide Boys as well, the duo, consisting of rappers Louis Pastel and Felix, have a really fun way of bouncing off each other, while both showing off their eccentric vocal styles across both tracks here. There's even a really nice hook you could pull straight out of an indie rock tune on Mudbone. And lastly, gotta shout out possibly the most quotable opening 2 lines from a song this year. Finger bitches like a tech deck, Superman, her pussy bald like Lex. This is one I gotta thank the whole album of the year community for. I saw this whole album was getting a lot of great reviews and goddamn, it did not disappoint. Helps that I'm a sucker for a nice soul sample, and across the many this whole record has, the chop on Don't Save Me is surely my favorite. Performance-wise too, this is really all you can ask for with a hip-hop song. Amazing first verse from the main artist John Michel that sets the tone, followed by a slightly different but equally impressive feature verse from Larizi, and topped off with an anthemic hook courtesy of Kennedy Rose. It really just is the complete package. Very excited to see what this rapper-producer duo will hit us with in the future. I have no doubt it'll be just as quality. Man, oh man, do I have a lot to say about this one. Strap in. First off, I am still so embarrassed that it took me as long as it did to actually listen to this track. I'm not gonna lie, the mountains of praise it was getting kind of turned me off from checking it out since it got kind of annoying. By the way, kids, don't think like this. I promise it's not gonna kill you to enjoy something that's popular. But yeah, after properly giving the subway a chance, this is easily my new favorite Chappell Roan song, probably even beating out Good Luck Babe. For one, instrumental here, masterful. I never knew how much I needed Chappell singing over backing that sounds straight from the Cocteau Twins. And of course, she absolutely kills it with the vocals. Everything from the forlorn verses to that soaring hook paired with those background harmonies, to the incredible culmination of heartbreak in the outro with layers upon layers of the She Got Away refrain, every moment of this song vocally just refuses to leave my head. But on top of all of this, the subway is written in such a devastating manner. There's so many lines that perfectly convey that feeling of trying to move on from an ex until they become another stranger, but still, even the slightest reminder of them is enough to trigger a complete breakdown. Amazing track that truly hits all the marks it's aiming for. However, there is one thing I still have to say about it, or rather the artist who deeply inspired it. Taylor Swift. Please make music this good again. I know you can do it. Seriously, there are so many times where I'm listening to this Chappell song and I just think to myself, man, I wish Taylor Swift still made songs with this feeling. And it sucks because I'm sure she's still capable of putting together amazing singing, writing, and instrumentation. Lord knows she has the money for it. But God, the true Drakeification of her modern output really is in full force now. Sorry, minor tangent, I know, but yeah. Taylor, please lock in. Shout out Chappell Roan. And here we have another artist where I have to give a special thanks to my girlfriend for putting me on. When it comes to making some of the most unsettling and depressing but still strangely beautiful music of the modern era, Hayden Anadonia, aka Ethel Cain, is really in a league of her own. We'll talk more about her Willoughby Tucker album a little bit later, minor spoiler, but the 90-minute ambient EP she dropped in the beginning of this year has to be the peak of true evil that she has the potential to conjure up into song form, with Punish being the harrowing thematic climax of the project. Trigger warning for PDF-philia and self-harm, by the way. The song details, as Hayden herself puts it, quote, a PDF file who was shot by the child's father and now lives in exile where he physically maims himself to simulate the bullet wound in order to punish himself. And what's especially brilliant about how this topic is covered is the ability to imagine the absolute worst possible character in this track while still giving them layered and complex traits, without glorifying or justifying the actions of the narrator. Very important part. Like, you can tell that this narrator has felt deeply ashamed of themselves since a very young age, but they still have this very fucked up, warped perception of their condition as being punished by love. And even going as far as to say that their behavior is going to be seen as righteous by God. Frankly, very disturbing stuff. Intentionally so, though. Feigning too that one of Hayden's most demented narratives is coupled with perfectly bleak instrumentation. It's crazy how well the atmosphere is established despite how minimal it is. Never thought I'd be making this comparison, but if you saw my last video about the worst songs of the year, Punish is kind of like the antithesis of Cousins. While Cousins exploits a taboo topic in extremely poor taste to the point where it almost makes a mockery of it, Punish tackles a very similar topic in a much more respectful manner, while still forcing the listener to confront these really dark themes head on. So props to Hayden for managing to achieve such a tough balancing act. Camera winner is my spirit animal. That's it, that's really all that needs to be said. Joking aside though, I absolutely fell in love with this man's music this year, obviously starting with his band Geese and their new album, and then checking out his solo record, Heavy Metal. And despite the misleading title, the pure nostalgia and comfort that I found in this project was unmatched, thanks to Winter's unique vocal stylings and raw instrumentals. The track $0 being the longest and probably the most climactic piece of the record. I swear, that gorgeous piano progression has something cooked into it to make it trigger such a strong mental image in my head. Especially when the strings come in, I feel like I'm inside of a log cabin in the dead of a harsh winter night, and I'm making hot chocolate and thinking about Christmas at my childhood home. It's incredible. Vocally, like I said too, huge highlight. That part at the end where he just keeps repeating God is actually real. I'm convinced this man might have had a slight breakdown while recording this thing.
God is actually real, I'm not kidding this time. I think God is actually...
There's also so many little weird moments vocally that stand out on first listen and add so much character. And of course, lyricism. I know this comparison is blasphemy to some of the old heads out there, but Cameron Winter as a songwriter really has that Bob Dylan-esque ability to convey things so simply and efficiently, but at the same time you think to yourself, damn, why have I never thought of it that way? Like, even just the concept of seeing yourself as worthless being phrased as being a $0 man, devastating. Monumental track overall. To say I'm hyped for more work from Winter and Geese would be a gross understatement. Also bonus points for dropping on my birthday. Dude, I was way too late to check out this Nourished by Time record. Oh my god, is it fantastic. It's like if you took a mix of TV Girl sample-heavy style with touches of psychedelia and fleshed it out with significantly more soulful progressions and modern R&B sensibilities with a super off-kilter but really endearing vocal style. Very unique fusion of hip-hop, R&B, synth-pop with even some elements of gospel music. But as for why I went for When the War Is Over, for one, it's in my opinion the most replayable track on the record with its driving drum pattern and infectious singing performance. Seriously, that hook is so fun to sing along with. Helps too, I find it's worded especially powerful. I mean, Baby If You Love Me, Maybe I'll Surrender, I think has to be my favorite lyric of the year. I don't know, something about it just hits so hard. 10 out of 10 track, super excited to check out more Nourished by Time in 2026.
Baby boy, I saw his picture in the funny papers, 11 pounds.
It's truthfully pretty surreal that we're coming up on 8 years now since Mac Miller's tragic passing, but I'm forever grateful that his unreleased catalog so far has been treated with the utmost respect it deserves. Circles, being the first posthumous release of Mac's, is arguably his best work, and Balloonerism follows up the 5-year gap perfectly. Considering that these tracks were recorded in 2014, meaning Mac was likely around 21 to 22 years old during the writing process, it's pretty crazy to see how early he was able to polish his lyrical ability, with a level of maturity and self-awareness regarding the human condition shocking to see from someone so young. And Funny Papers, in my opinion, rivals 2009 in being a real magnum opus moment for Mac. Like the name suggests, the track sees Mac reading headlines from a newspaper, be it the news of a recent drunk driving incident or simply a baby being born, and he relates these headlines to his own personal experiences in a classically depressing but sort of uplifting way. There's so many little vignettes here that add to the overall themes of the song, be it the fact that the aforementioned drunk driver apparently drove off the bridge to his wedding song, a gut-wrenching revelation, or describing this new baby's birth with the lines, his mother cried with her lips against his soft face, why'd she bring these bright eyes into this dark place? And man, that line in the beginning where Mac says, didn't think anybody died on a Friday, and then you check and you see Mac himself passed away on a Friday. Man, Mac Miller remains unmatched when it comes to making absolute tearjerkers. And matched with that classic jazzy boom bap production with a hint of Thundercat bass, Funny Papers is a real tour de force, making it all the crazier that it, along with the rest of Balloonerism, was unreleased for so long. Onto a track that won't actually be on the bracket since it's technically a Kevin Abstract song. Abandon Me is right in that sweet spot of Quad's music with a spectacular melodic instinct in the chorus and super emotionally resonant production without sacrificing any replayability in the name of an overly complex arrangement. I'm noticing as well that, for whatever reason, the ballads are usually the standout tracks in Quadeca's discography, with tracks like Easier or even Guide Dog being other great examples. I don't know, just something about the way he approaches them sonically and lyrically, I find they really help his strengths as a singer-songwriter and producer shine. And no surprise, Abandon Me features these strengths at full force. Like I already said, the hook is masterfully done with a killer falsetto. Production is definitely simpler than your average Quadeca song nowadays, but still features a lot of cool little instrumental moments, like the persistent static fuzz across the song or the chants in the background during some sections. And as for the lyrics, the central concept of almost not being able to believe this one new person won't abandon you after you've pushed everyone else away, and now viewing yourself as incapable of being loved and cared for, pretty damn profound. So yeah, thanks for the track, Wonka. And finally, just barely missing out my top 10, you know there had to be a Peggy track here, and despite some fierce competition across his director's cut for his 2024 record, What You Should Know was and still remains my favorite. I think I mentioned this in my sample breakdown for this track, but it's like the best possible fusion of Peggy's slightly more polished and larger-than-life production style he achieved with I Lay Down My Life For You, and the glitchier, bouncier, absolutely batshit insane sample chopping all over Scaring the Hose. Seriously, that chop of Body Party by Sierra mixed in with those drum breaks is like pure ecstasy. And speaking of ecstasy, it brings me to a standout favorite lyrical moment where Peggy just lists as many types of recreational drugs as possible, and then ends the part by saying, I feel like I'm AI me. I don't know, I just found that really funny. There's also Big Back Flow Like I've Been Rapping on PEDs, another standout hilarious bar. And of course, we haven't even talked about the second half of the track, with an instrumental that perfectly encapsulates the word moist. I'll play a clip here, you'll see what I mean.
1, 2.
Like, there's really no better way of describing it than moist, right? Endlessly catchy, top-tier sample work as usual, and Peggy's classic dirtbag leftist charisma all come together to make easily the most fun track of the year for me, and I believe my most listened to track as well. Although shout out to Protect the Cross, the title track, and Allah for other great JPEG tracks that came out this year that barely missed the cut. And with that, let's get into the true big dogs, the top 10 best songs of 2025, in my humble, but also more valid than everyone else's, opinion. Okay, I'll be real here, this and Boy You Should Know are damn near interchangeable in this spot, but I thought it'd be funny to put Freddie Gibbs one spot above Peggy. Sue me. Back to Freddie Gibbs though, decided to properly check out his stuff this year with Alfredo 2. I get it now. What a phenomenal record. In my opinion, beating out even the original. And out of the various standouts, I ended up going with Ensalada just for how much Anderson .Paak is able to elevate the track with his hook. Not to say the two verses from Freddie don't suffice, far from it actually. Killer flow across the entire track paired with some super nice quotables. I especially love the line where he says, "You ever had to work the dope line so your homie mom stand in line for this shit?" As well as the "ask who the fuck I trust, bitch I trust me" refrain. You've also of course got smooth ass production from The Alchemist, although that's consistent across every track on this record. But it really is Paak's chorus that makes everything come together. Absolutely love the little touch of the background harmonies, and the contrast between Paak's charismatic voice with Freddie's more cold-blooded delivery is palpable.
Help me get away from this godforsaken place I'm in. You should run away.
There's also the final line I really like where he says, "Pay the driver to go the opposite way to Vegas." Pretty funny considering the content of a certain Silk Sonic song. Who knows though, maybe Anderson .Paak's just trying to make sure he doesn't rack up debt like Bruno Mars. Overall thoughts though, while I of course appreciate the sheer variety of modern hip-hop nowadays, Ensalada is one of those tracks where I listen to it and I think, damn, why can't all rap sound like this?
Worked harder than a bitch.
Well, alright, I guess I spoke a little too soon earlier, since Earl Sweatshirt's signature lane of abstract hip-hop is a style I cannot imagine losing. Exhaust, as the closer of Earl's album this year, functions as not only the perfect wrapping of the record's themes, but also to Earl's journey as an artist and person. And I can only speak as a fan of Earl Sweatshirt. Obviously, I've never met the guy, but it honestly brings me so much joy to see him in a better place mentally, on this song especially. You know, I often make the comparison to Mac Miller here. Both him and Earl gained popularity at a super young age, and both had an immense talent when it came to expressing their struggles through their writing, resulting in some of the saddest rap music ever made. So especially considering how Mac's career and story ended, it's a miracle that Earl was able to carve out a happier life for himself in the end. But yeah, all that's to say, this catharsis is flawlessly demonstrated in Exhaust, with Earl explaining how he, quote, worked harder than a bitch to get to this better place. And of course, Earl has always been a wordsmith, so his tackling of this topic is so potent. I especially love the part where he says, "Lining silver on the nimbus cloud, I get it now, more power to you, but it's no flowers in your vase." Super poetic way to articulate that a better life is always possible, no matter how dark things get, but that the reward to achieving this life isn't anything physical, but rather the happy life is the reward itself. The production too really adds to this calm end credits kind of feeling, courtesy of Navy Blue and Earl himself. It's not necessarily a happy ending kind of feeling, but more a peaceful ending. One of my favorite beats of the year. Exhaust is a song that stands extremely well on its own, don't get me wrong, but I think it takes knowing the progression of Earl Sweatshirt to really appreciate the track's brilliance.
Of course she grabs hair that grows towards heaven.
Yeah, you probably expected this one considering my previous praise of both The Alchemist and Billy Woods, and Super Nintendo is a textbook example of each musician's respective abilities. Although ironically enough, Elucid, who for those unaware is the other half of the rap duo Arm & Hammer, has my favorite verse on the track for sure. The intersyllabic rhyming is on another level here, and it makes the whole verse flow together effortlessly. And Woods himself of course follows it up masterfully, weaving in some nostalgic themes while keeping a dark undertone. The closing lines especially referencing his mom, where he says, "Used to be up late pacing, now she sleep like the dead. I passed out on the couch, dreams like lead." Chilling stuff. Also love the chorus where the two trade lines and continue the reminiscent vibe, with mentions of their childhoods and the titular Super Nintendo. Great imagery there. However, all these genuinely very strong aspects of this song still don't even come close to just how fucking good this beat is. It's crazy how it's such a basic instrumental at its core, consisting of literally just a detuned retro synth sound and a bass line, but it still manages to go so hard, on top of really hammering in that perfect mix of joy and sadness that nostalgia often brings. Stop me if you've heard this before, it's just another track where it really takes you to that mental image it's trying to portray, where everything from the beat to the rapping to the lyrics contribute. Now this one might come as a bit of a surprise given my previous video discussing The Weeknd's final album, but to be fair, I believe I did mention Niagara Falls as a major highlight on the project even back then, and with time passing, I've only grown to love the track more and more. First off, production here is in that perfect pocket of Abel's music where it features all the more clean, professional, maximalist synth-pop elements of his modern output, while mixing in the more abundant sample work of his earlier projects. It sounds like if you took an instrumental bass from House of Balloons and punched it up with a bunch of super clean bells and whistles to give it that much more oomph. It's very sick. As for lyrics, it's another great balancing act. Like I've said before, the more sterile writing style of The Weeknd is way less appealing to me, so seeing him dip more into his trademark lyrical edge with raunchiness and hedonistic themes throughout is so welcome here. Also, as usual, melodically speaking, consistently stellar and catchy as hell. I straight up think The Weeknd's never had a below good vocal performance. And even beyond that, you've got that transcendent outro where the sample loop consistently rises in pitch along with the synths, as it sets up the transition to Take Me Back to LA, the next track. Such an unnecessary addition, but I'm so glad it made the cut. It really adds to the atmosphere of the song and the album as a whole. Shout out Mike Dean for that one, of course. But yeah, I'm just happy that we got a quality track this year that paid homage to Abel's untouched mixtape run of the early 2010s, especially considering the place he ended his musical career at. Quite a switch up here, I know, but Nina Geraci's album this year absolutely blew me away. I mean, I'm already a massive Porter Robinson fan, so I knew I was probably gonna like the record, and the terminally online internet core aesthetic of it, combined with some top tier EDM, had me absolutely hooked, with the song Delete being probably the best example. See, the whole track is centered around the idea of posting a thirst trap to the internet for a crush. And already, that's such a fun topic to base a song around in my opinion, but there's so many little moments in the lyrics that just ooze relatability as a fellow Zoomer. I love the line, "I chose a song you like in case you saw it." Like, that feeling of trying to pick the perfect song to go along with your post is near universal at this point. Or even the line, "I'm sorry, I promise it'll be gone in the morning," referencing the 24-hour lifespan of a story. Super cute tongue-in-cheek stuff here, but still a hint of sadness, as it's clear that the thirst trap Nina posts in the song comes from a place of obsession and insecurity, as revealed in some other lines. And it'd be one thing if I only enjoyed the lyrics, but they are paired so well with the electro-pop flavor of the song, it ends up feeling like you're in cyberspace following the post as it becomes public throughout the song, if that makes sense. Dare I say, I'm crowning the song as the official Gen Z anthem, effortlessly blending Y2K-era electronic music with authentic internet culture. A perfect recipe for the chronically online music nerd. You know those songs where you're never gonna forget the first time hearing them? Jim Legacy's another artist who I'd been vaguely interested in up until his latest mixtape, Black British Music. And Father, being the lead single, I feel perfectly encapsulates Legacy's knack for genre dabbling, blending elements of UK hip-hop, jerk, and even some alternative R&B with how effortlessly impressive some of the vocal lines are. Not to mention the chipmunk soul sampling that gives the track its bones, which also leads to a great moment of the hook where the same vocal chop completes the lines as the word father in one and bother in the other. Very creative stuff. Legacy as well has such a strong grasp of melody so early on, which is very impressive. Nearly every line is sung in such an addicting way, although to be fair, the lines themselves being so memorable always helps. Admittedly, it's definitely the track that I have the least to talk about in the top 5, and it's pretty short too, but I think the brevity actually helps with the real lightning in a bottle feeling it gives off. And I shouldn't even be saying lightning in a bottle since there's a ton of other great tracks on Black British Music, Stick, New David Bowie, and Tiger Driver 91 being other crazy highlights. But I don't know, I still think Father stands up as the best among the crop.
Darling, don't you give up on him.
Yeah, this man really did it again. I honestly did not think that he'd be able to top the easiers or Born Yesterdays of his catalog, but here goes Quedeca making a track that you can tell is truly timeless off the first listen. And you know, before the release of Vanisher, I really did consider Godstain to be the best of the singles, and there was even a period where Foregone would have been my pick. But as the record ages, there really is nothing that stands out to me quite like Monday. First off, instrumentally, stunning, and packed with so many layers of just everything, but at the same time, it still feels so cozy and easy to get lost in. Vocally speaking, similar to Abandon Me, we get one of Quedeca's best ever hooks as well. It's so raw and passionate while still keeping this consistent fragility across the performance. Like, it feels almost as if our narrator here is experiencing an emotional climax in their journey. And paired with the song's themes of new beginnings and struggling to keep going with lines like "I'm losing my grip on the runway," it's an exceptionally powerful moment. Above all else, though, I just want to appreciate every little meticulous decision made to give the song the atmosphere of a lonely voyager exploring the vast emptiness of the sea. From some of the metaphors in the words referencing heavy clothing like feathered coats and lighthouses, to the countless instances of ambient sounds of waves or creaks of an old boat. Super admirable work, and impressive as hell from a guy who, need to remind y'all, has a song with Dax. Quedeca, as is pretty commonplace, blew my expectations out of the water with this one, pun intended, leading to easily my favorite track of his this year, and potentially even of all time. Or maybe it's not, who knows, guess you'll have to see how far it makes it in the Quedeca song bracket, coming soon, boom, shameless plug, baby, let's move on. Come on, don't lie. You knew she'd be back. While Perverts was a very enjoyable side quest from Ethel Cain, I had no doubt in my mind that after the prequel album to Preacher's Daughter was also announced for this year, it was going to be the true heavy hitter. And man, what an album Willoughby Tucker I'll Always Love You was. Janie, Fuck Me Eyes, Radio Towers, Tempest, Waco, fucking Nettles, every full song could have made the cut for this list. Nettles especially was extremely close to getting this spot. But in the end, I went for, in my opinion, the underrated, most emotionally devastating moment of the entire album's story, which also happened to have my favorite instrumentation, Dust Bowl. Now, let's of course get the elephant in the room addressed. Duster sample, I'm Gonna Bust. Duster, for those unaware, is a band with one of the most profoundly melancholic sounds I've ever heard, so it's really a match made in heaven for an equally downtrodden Ethel Cain track. And when beefed up with these super heavy walls of guitars and bass that come in during the drop, holy shit, the way it just rocks you to your core. You know though, of course, the standout aspect has gotta be the writing. Like I said, the point in the album's story that this track details describes such a devastating turn of events from the slightly more optimistic tracks before it. And I won't go into the whole Ethel Cain story. If you know, there is a lot of lore. I'll just say that in Dust Bowl, we learn about the tragic decline and eventual disillusion of the young love that Ethel and Willoughby Tucker shared, as the two age and their individual repressed trauma causes that spark to slowly fade. Already a very painful feeling to channel here, and damn, does Hayden make sure to absolutely break you with lines like, watching, hoping the wind blows slowly so I can keep you for a moment, or you'd be a writer if he didn't leave all this hell for you, referring to the trauma Willoughby's abusive father left. Just, what a song, dude. That's really all I can say.
Uncle said, nigga, you must be sick. All you talk about.
I mean, just from the lineup of artists we've got here, I already knew that this was probably going to be the best rap song of the year. I mean, it is so exceptionally rare that you get a cut where all four of the musicians here are masters of their respective craft. The beat by Pharrell is an absolute killer. It's amazing how intense and unforgiving it can sound with just a simple kick pattern as percussion, similar to the iconic production of No Church in the Wild. And that guitar stab that hits every once in a while is just such a nice touch. I can't really imagine a better possible instrumental to deliver a hard-ass rap verse over. And fortunately, both Pusha T and Malice take it as a challenge to out-rap one another, to impeccable results. I'm talking countless Bar of the Year contenders across both verses. Crush You to Pieces, I'll Hum a Breath of It, I'll Close Your Heaven for the Hell of It, Richard Don't Make Watches for Presidents, Just a Million Trapped Between Skeletons, and of course, The Diamonds Make You Taste Peppermint. What a visual there. The lines as well are complemented with the pure confidence and malice, no pun intended, in the delivery of both brothers. Like I saw a comment on TikTok the other day saying something to the effect of, Pusha T and Malice rap like they're inside of your house, but you don't know which room they're in, and I couldn't agree more. And even then, I still think that Kendrick Lamar's verse is my favorite on the track. Murderous delivery, countless bars centered around great multisyllabic rhyming, and that flow that he hits as he ramps up in intensity is an unparalleled moment.
Heavy jeans like Genevieve's. I drop your Pentagon, then show up at your gender reveal and tell them, give me mine. I son niggas.
I truly don't see how you could argue that there's another hip-hop track that came out this year that's as consistently flawless as Chains and Whips, besides maybe another pick on Let God Sort 'Em Out. Shout out, of course, to POV, So Be It, Ace Trumpets, Mike Tyson Blow to the Face, Earnings Before Interest, Taxes, Depreciation, and Amortization, and Inglourious Bastards. But even still, there was one track that just barely beat out Clipse here for my song of the year. And honestly, if you're an avid music listener, you could probably guess what it is. The official Mushroomz Best Song of 2025 goes to... Did you guess right? I mean, with the previous Cameron Winter praise, I think I hinted at it pretty well. But yeah, the music of his band Geese really swept me off my feet this year, harder than pretty much any other act of 2025. And the lead single of their newest record is for sure the track that I found myself loving above any other song this year, for a multitude of reasons. I already mentioned how big of a fan I am of Winter's voice and writing style, and Taxes sees those two aspects at their absolute peak. We start with a softer vocal tone in the intro as Winter croons about self-loathing, quite literally saying, "I should burn in hell." And the religious imagery continues as the singing gets more and more intense, but the backing of the band still stays pretty gentle, right up until this incredible drop with a heavenly guitar part coming in and the drums ramping up in speed.
Gonna have to nail me down.
This part of the song, I can't emphasize enough. It feels like it's existed since the beginning of time almost. Like, that groove is so quintessentially rock to me. Aided by a stunner of a finale by Cameron Winter as he screams his version of the famous "physician heal thyself" proverb, followed by a transcendent instrumental break and dramatic finish. I find a song's progression is often overlooked for how important an aspect it is during the creation process of music in so many cases, which makes it all the more impressive just how well this track flows from section to section, to the point where you can feel exactly what's coming next before even knowing. And what's even wilder, the music video version of the song where the first half is taken presumably from a live performance, it's even better. To conclude though, I think my thoughts on Taxes are still best described by the sentence that I wrote to summarize it right after my first listen. A spectacular fusion of mania and devastation. Special shoutouts to Cobra, Au Pas du Cocaine, and Long Island City Here I Come as well. Cobra especially got me really close to just breaking the rules and putting 2 Geese tracks in this list. And very last thing before we wrap here, I feel like I should address the growing minority of folks that have been pretty vocal about their annoyance over the near universal praise Geese has been getting as of late. And I get it, sometimes it can be very annoying when everywhere you go it's people glazing something you personally don't see the hype in. But in all honesty, I don't really care. This list is about what I think, and I think Taxes is a masterpiece. Hence why it comes in as my favorite song of 2025. Holy fuck, that was a long one, but if you managed to make it to the end of the video, genuinely, thank you so much. I have a slight feeling, given how long I've been away, that these videos won't get many views, but I'm ultimately just happy to have gotten my best songs list out there since it's always one of my favorite videos to make. I know, talking about music that I really love is fun, go figure. So I hope all of you watching out there were able to enjoy the app sesh. And if you did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel to see new uploads from me, most likely more often. Yeah, if you're curious about why I was gone for so long, check out my last video's outro where I go into more detail, but long story short, expect more videos every once in a while I finish my degree. But back to the regular outro now. Also make sure to leave a comment letting me know what you think about these best song picks and drop your favorite song of 2025 in the comments as well. And finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, you can now become a member and receive early access to all of my videos, as well as a special shout out from me at the end of them, as you will see on screen right now. So join up if you're interested, it really does help me out a lot. But yeah, that's about it. Comment you know Miles snubbed, by the way, if you made it this far. Okay, bye.